The enemy wants you to believe that because you cannot see another move, God must be out of moves. But your limited vision does not limit God's strategy. The wall may still be standing. The door may still be closed. The answer may still be delayed. The situation may still look impossible. But heaven can declare victory while the obstacle is standing in front of you. See, in Joshua 6:16, it says, "And at the seventh hour, when the priests had blown the trumpets, Joshua said unto the people, Shout, for the Lord hath given you the city." Notice what Joshua did not say. He did not say shout because the wall is beginning to crack. No, he did not say shout because we finally understand the strategy of God. He did not say shout because everything was now made sense. He said, shout, for the Lord hath given you the city. The wall was still standing, but the victory had already been declared. And somebody watching needs to hear this today, that the obstacle in front of you does not cancel the promise that God has spoken to you. Welcome back to the Burning Empowerment of Your Soul blog series. My name is Minister Malcolm Sykes. And if this is your first time here, subscribe to this blog. Join our community that's built around resilience, purpose, and refusing to quit what's in God's mission for our lives. Today we're speaking on the strategic warfare when God says checkmate. Because checkmate comes from the game of chess. But chess is not simply a game about moving pieces around the board. No, it's not about appearing busy. It's not about making the most noise in this game. It's not about you capturing every opposing piece. The objective is to protect your king while strategically placing the opposing king in a position where there's no safe move for him left. See, every piece has a different assignment. The knight moves with the L shape. It can jump over other pieces and strike from an unexpected angle. The bishop moves diagonally, cutting across the board through paths that other pieces cannot use. The rook moves in straight lines, and the queen has tremendous freedom to move in almost every single direction. The pawns move slowly, usually one square at a time. And the king has very small and limited moves, but it remains the most important piece on the entire board. That teaches us something about life, that the most important thing in your life may not be the loudest, fastest, or most visible thing. It may be your faith, your family, your peace, your integrity, your calling, your purpose, your relationship with God, and even your assignment. The world may celebrate movement, influence, money, recognition, and speed, but God may be telling you to protect something very much deeper. Because what good is building a successful business if you lose your integrity? What good is gaining attention if you lose your peace? What good is pursuing a goal if you leave God outside the process? What good is moving quickly if you're moving in the wrong direction? You do not need to protect everything equally, but you must recognize what God has appointed you to guard. Stop sacrificing your God-given purpose just to preserve things that God never was to produce for you. In chess, pieces may be sacrificed to protect the king. Now, God does not treat his children like disposable pieces, but life can still make certain losses feel as though you are being removed off the board. You may lose time. You may lose money. You may lose relationships. You may lose opportunities. You may lose confidence. You may lose comfort. You lose something you genuinely believe was necessary for your future. And when enough losses accumulate, the enemy starts whispering, you are losing. God has forgotten you. You should be further than you are by now. You missed your chance. You have no more moves left. But every loss is not defeat. Sometimes what you lost was interfering with what God was preserving for you. Sometimes what you left Your life could not accompany you into the next season. And sometimes the opportunity that disappeared would have distracted you from your real assignment. Sometimes the relationship that you were in was preventing you from healing. Sometimes the closed door was not rejection, but it's redirection. Because sometimes what felt like God was taking something away was God clearing the board for you. A setback can be painful, but still be strategic. You may only see the move that hurts you. God sees the entire board. You see the door closing. God sees what was waiting behind it. You see the delay, and God sees the preparation that He still has in store for you. You see the person leaving. God sees the damage that might have been caused by you staying in that relationship. You see what is happening today, but God sees how today connects to a victory that He has for you tomorrow. That is where faith becomes necessary. Faith says, Lord, I may not understand the move, but I trust one moving piece that you have in my life. Even when I can't trace your hand, I can trust your heart. If you allowed the delay, you still control the timing. If you permitted the loss, you still know what is best for me. If the closed door, you know where the correct entrance is. I will not surrender in the middle of the strategy I cannot fully see. Do not call the game over while God is still making moves. And that brings us to Joshua and Jericho. Jericho was not a minor inconvenience. It was a fortified city. It had walls, resistance, reputation, and protection. From Israel's perspective, it looked secured, guarded, and nearly impossible to penetrate. But before the walls fell, God told Joshua in Joshua 6:2, see, I have given into the hand of Jericho, and the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor. God says, see, but Joshua was still looking at a wall. That is the tension of faith. God says, see the victory, but I still see the problem, right? God says, I have given it to you, but your circumstances say, but nothing has changed yet. God says it is settled. Your emotions still say, then why am I still waiting? Faith does not deny that the walls exist. Faith recognizes that the walls does not have the final word. God then gave Joshua a strategy that did not match his human logic. March around the city, and on the 6th day, on the 7th day, march around it 7 times. Let the priests carry the trumpets. Follow the ark. Wait for the appointed command. Then shout. No siege ramps, no battering rams, no immediate attack against the gates, and no panic. No uncontrolled emotion, no attempt to prove their strength. Just obedience, timing, discipline, unity, and trust in God. From the outside, it probably looked as though Israel was doing nothing but walking around in circles. But every step was part of a strategy. Every lap mattered. Every quiet day mattered. Every trumpet blast mattered. Every act of obedience mattered. Somebody watching this needs to understand quiet obedience is still forward movement with God. Just because people cannot see your progress does not mean that you are standing still. Just because your process has become repetitive does not mean it's pointless. Just because you are still praying the same prayer does not mean God is ignoring you. Just because you are still building slowly does not mean that the vision is failing. Just because you are waiting does not mean that God has abandoned the plan. Sometimes you are not walking in circles. Sometimes you are completing another lap around the obstacle that is getting ready to fall. Joshua 6:10 says, and Joshua had commanded the people, saying, ye shall not shout, nor make thy noise with your voice, neither shall any word proceed out of your mouth until the day I bid you to shout. Then shall ye shout. Their silence was not weakness. Their silence was strategy. That is the difficulty for many of us, because we feel compelled to explain everything. We want everybody to understand our intentions. We want to defend every decision that we make. We want to respond to every criticism. We want to announce our plans before they even mature. We want to post every move before the move is complete. But sometimes God will tell you, move quietly, pray privately, prepare faithfully. Stop arguing with people who are not assigned to your future. Stop explaining your calling to people committed to misunderstanding it. Stop letting emotion make announcements that obedience has not authorized. Not every move needs an audience. A skilled chess player does not panic at every move made by his opponent. The player studies the board. They recognize that some moves are defensive, some moves are positioning, and some moves are preparation. And some moves appear small because they are setting up for something much bigger. The same is true when you are trusting God's timing. Sometimes God moves you. Sometimes God hides you. Sometimes God slows you down. And sometimes God separates you. Sometimes God makes you wait. Sometimes God lets the enemy believe that nothing is happening while he's preparing you for the final move. The silence does not mean that God has stopped working. God can accomplish more behind the scenes than you could possibly forcing the scene. This is where spiritual warfare requires discipline, because the enemy wants you to break formation. He wants to frustrate you and make you move too early. He wants fear to make you abandon your position. He wants comparison to convince you that your process is moving too slow. He wants to discourage you, to speak against your promise, and feel like you're praying against you. He wants exhaustion to make you quit before the seventh lap. But you cannot allow temporary emotions to override permanent instructions. When the seventh day came, Israel marched around Jericho 7 times. Then Joshua said, "Shout, for the Lord hath given you the city." That was the checkmate move. The silence ended. The trumpets sounded. The people shouted, and the walls fell flat. Not because Israel's voice had some physical and powerful force that was to knock down the fortified walls, not because their weapons were superior, not because the strategy made sense to everybody watching. The walls fell because God spoke and his people obeyed. Obedience positioned them for what only God could perform. Some of us want the walls to fall, but we do not want to walk. We want the shout without the silence. We want the victory without the discipline. We want the promise without the process. We want God to bless the plan, but we do not want him directing the steps. We want immediate results, but God is building lasting faith. Do not judge your life because the full instruction or strategy is not unfolded before you. Do not let the enemy convince you that you are in checkmate simply because one part of the board looks bad. Your strategy may be limited, but God's sovereignty is not. Your opposition may appear very surmountable, but God is not out of moves. Your resources may be low, but God is not restricted to your inventory. Your influence may seem small, but God does not need a crowd to fulfill his purpose. Your situation may look surrounded, but God can create a way out of no way. And the greatest checkmate in history happened at Calvary. Jesus was nailed to the cross. His hands were pierced. His feet were pierced. He was mocked. He was wounded. He died. And they placed him in a borrowed tomb. A stone sealed him through the entrance. And from the outside, it appeared that it was final. The enemy thought the king had been captured. Death thought it had won. The grave thought it had closed the last door. But the cross was not God losing the battle. The cross was God completing the strategy. What looked like defeat was redemption. What looked like humility was victory. What looked like the ending was the beginning of salvation for everyone who believes. 3 days later, Jesus rose with all power in his hands. The grave could not hold him. Death could not defeat him. Satan could not stop him. 1 Corinthians 15:57 declares, but thanks be to God, which giveth us the victory through the Lord Jesus Christ. So because Jesus lives, believers do not fight hoping that victory might become possible. We fight from the victory Christ has already secured for us. So today be encouraged. Your wall is not too high for God. Your enemy is not too powerful for God. Your loss is not beyond redemption. Your delay is not outside of God's timing. Your silence is not wasted. Your obedience is not being ignored. Prayers have not been misplaced. Keep marching, keep trusting, keep obeying, and keep believing. Keep building, keep protecting the purpose that God has placed in you. And if this message is strengthening your faith, then subscribe to the Burning Empowerment of Your Soul and share this video with somebody who feels surrounded, delayed, or ready to quit. We are building a community that chooses discipline, resilience, and purpose, even when the outcome seems like it's not what's appearing. Now, let me ask you something. What have you called defeat simply because you did not understand the move? What if that closed door was being positioning? And what if the waiting season is just preparation? What if the silence is strategy? What if the enemy is celebrating too early? What if God has already planned the move that changes everything? Do not surrender your faith in the middle of the strategy. Do not walk away on the sixth lap. Do not stop praying because the wall is still standing. Do not declare yourself defeated while heaven is still saying victory. And lock in what's on your spirit. So when God speaks victory, the outcome is already settled. The move may look strange, but the strategy is divine. The process may feel long, but the promise still stands. The board may look crowded, but God already knows the ending. And when God makes the final move, every enemy, every obstacle, every delay, and every wall must fall by his authority. So when God says it's time, walk in obedience, stand in faith, lift up your voice, and shout, for the Lord has given you the city. Leave it in the declared section that God has the final move. And remember, the enemy may believe that you are surrounded, but God may already be setting up your checkmate. And until next week, God bless you and your family. See you next week, Monday at 6.